Hey everyone, Zian over here from Nintendo Life, and today we're here to share with you our review of Fire Emblem N-Gage on the Nintendo Switch. Now, this review was originally written by PJ O'Reilly for NintendoLife.com, but was reworked into this video by me. It's been almost 4 years since the massively successful Fire Emblem Three Houses stormed onto Switch and reignited our passion for Intelligent Systems' long-running tactical RPG series. Here was a game that deepened the relationship and social sim aspects and captured the hearts of gamers who reveled in 3 separate campaign paths packed full of interactive melodrama that sat perfectly alongside the series' signature strategic action. Fast forward to 2023, and you'd be forgiven for expecting Fire Emblem N-Gage to follow closely in the footsteps of its all-conquering predecessor, whilst refining combat, smoothing out rough edges, and adding even more relationships, more romance, and just generally more of all the aspects that so many people readily connected with last time around. Well, we'd all be wrong for thinking that, as this Fire Emblem escapade is sidestepping most of that in favor of a different flavor of adventure that harks back to earlier entries in the franchise. Its focus is set firmly on combat, with everything else taking a back seat. When we first previewed Fire Emblem N-Gage, it seemed as though everything was primed for more of what was dished up in Three Houses. The stage was set for lots of over-the-top drama. We'd been introduced to the new Somniel hub area, which seemed like the kind of place a couple of fellow fighters might do a little bit of old romancing. And we were fully expecting to divide our time equally between smashing Corrupted on the battlefield and chilling out at the quaint little cafe, as we got to know our favored party members a little better. But as it turns out, the Somniel, as big as it is and as wonderful as it looks, actually acts as little more than a base of operations from which to recharge, reload, and respec between combat. It may give you plenty of side activities to engage with. There's quick-time event training games, meals to cook, pets to adopt, an arena to trade in, and basically endless support and bonding conversations to have with your teammates. But this time around, all of the deep relationship stuff has been completely stripped back and streamlined in order to get you back into the action quickly. Let's take the support and bonding conversations as an example. Forget about Three Houses style dialogue choices or meaningful back and forths. Supports in Fire Emblem N-Gage are rarely more than a few lines of dialogue, and they deal almost entirely in fluff, with no meaningful attempt to dig very deep beneath the surface of the characters involved. And that's pretty much how it goes for the duration of the game as far as the social sim side of things is concerned, with the Somniel quickly becoming a place we almost avoided going back to if we're completely honest. The Somniel eventually becomes little more than a series of menus and hoops that you jump through in order to get your stat increases and get new gear. There's the odd, cute encounter here and there, and don't get us wrong, we do enjoy heading down to the pen to pet all of our adopted animals, and giving people a surprise gift of horse manure never really grows old, but we'd take the option to do all our leveling, purchasing, ring polishing, and weapon upgrading from a menu on the world map in a heartbeat if it was offered. In some respects, this is disappointing. But Fire Emblem N-Gage isn't in the slightest bit interested in presenting the sort of social sim its predecessor did, so it's hard to judge it too harshly for not living up to our own misplaced expectations. So if you're coming to Fire Emblem N-Gage looking for deep relationship antics that you loved in Three Houses, well, that stuff just isn't here. So it falls to the game's narrative to pick up the slack and inject some drama into proceedings, which, thankfully, it absolutely does. The story follows Alir, a divine dragon who's been awakened from a 1,000-year slumber in order to do battle with the evil Fell Dragon. And it's packed full of cheesy, over-the-top anime goofiness and surprises. There's a really well-rounded and likable cast to get to know, lots of far-flung regions to venture to along the way, and it all ramps up nicely in the game's final third act. introducing some wonderful villains who are absolutely bursting at the seam with big-time pantomime energy, providing a finale that twists and turns and gives players plenty of revelations to enjoy as it all comes to a suitably ludicrous end. We won't spoil a second of the narrative here, but needless to say, it's a satisfyingly strong backdrop to the slick tactical action at the core of proceedings. And even though the relationship building may not be what some players would have hoped for, N-Gage still does manage to introduce a host of highly enjoyable characters through its entertaining story. It's just that this time around, you'll get to know them much better on the battlefield than you ever will back at the Somniel. Much like last year's Triangle Strategy, this is a tactical RPG where we found ourselves warming to various characters as they became important parts of our combat strategies rather than through dialogue encounters. It's been almost a full year since we played Square Enix's masterpiece, and we still fondly remember the likes of Anna, Benedict, and Cordelia for their escapades in action, through the moments when they pulled us out of the fire and away from almost certain death. Now in Fire Emblem N-Gage, we feel exactly the same about the likes of Fram, our absolute MVP healer, Vander, the cast iron vanguard of our party, and Etier, the covert sniper whose long-range bow shots have saved our bacon time and time again. It's in the heat of battle that real relationships and emotion are forged, and this is a game that turns that heat right up to 11. With this in mind, and without being too pushy, we really can't recommend enough that you play Fire Emblem N-Gage with its signature permadeath option switched on. It adds so much tension and drama that's missing otherwise. We endured a couple of properly sore losses along the way, and it really helps you connect on a deeper level to the personalities that make up your team. And if you really can't take the pain of losing a favorite fighter, the time rewind mechanic has returned for this game as well, and it gives you unlimited uses if you're playing in normal mode. So if things don't shake out the way you hoped, you can always flip back a few turns and try it again. And with less of a focus on the social side this time around, the turn-based tactical action that's always been right at the beating heart of this franchise is hands down the best it's ever been. Right from the get-go, Fire Emblem N-Gage feels like it's in a rush to get you onto the battlefield, flinging you almost immediately into quick tutorial skirmishes that teach you the fundamentals that you'll need to understand fully if you're going to make it through the huge encounters you'll face further down the line. For the most part, series veterans will know what to expect here, with the signature weapon triangle returning to the fray, although this time it's been cleverly tweaked to incorporate the ability to break your opponent, disarming them so they don't get the chance to respond to your attack in a turn if you've taken their weapon choice into account. It's a small tweak on paper, but one with huge ripple effects once you're in the thick of the action. There's all the usual planning of fancy flanking maneuvers and risky one-man stealth ventures behind enemy lines, with plenty of breakable scenery to brush aside if you need to open up routes, and carefully placing units in and around enemies in order to unleash huge chain attacks is as fun now as it's ever been. It's always a huge rush to take a seemingly impossible situation and toy around with it, pushing and pulling your party members here and there, experimenting, rewinding mistakes, and digging into your available attack options until you strike gold, pulling together some ridiculous combos and decimating an enemy force that seemed to have you totally outgunned. All of that fun stuff is here in spades across countless battles that often run for a good hour at a time. It's the sweat-inducing kind of thing fans of this genre will absolutely revel in. The battle maps on offer are full of their fair share of surprises too, with innocent bystanders to rescue, useful treasures to nab, points to defend, and a host of other environmental tricks and traps for you to discover later in the game. This is top-notch tactical action. It's the kind of stuff that keeps you playing into the wee hours of the night, keeps you on your toes, and punishes you in a heartbeat if you haven't been paying attention. And we wouldn't want it any other way. Now, the biggest new addition this time around is the titular N-Gage system itself, which is based around the emblem rings that Alir and their pals set out to collect from around the continents of Helios. In order to fight back against the Fell Dragon and his corrupted armies, you'll need to gather each of the 12 rings, which contain the spirits of powerful Emblem warriors, which are all pulled from the vast history of Fire Emblem characters. By equipping a ring to any of your party members, you imbue them with those warriors' skills to use alongside their own in battle. As you fight alongside your chosen Emblem warrior, you'll charge up an N-Gage meter, which allows you to enter N-Gage mode proper, merging you with the spirit of your equipped ring and giving you 3 combat turns to put all manner of special skills to work against your foes. During these 3 turns, you'll also get access to your emblem's signature N-Gage attack, an often screen-shaking assault that you'll want to keep for just the right moment, as it can really save your skin in a tight spot. Take Celica's Warp Ragnarok, which sees her partner character imbued with the ability to warp across the map to unleash a powerful magic barrage that can often one-shot tricky distant foes and get them out of your hair as you push your party forward. Fighting alongside Emblem warriors sees your bond with them increase over time, in turn raising your attack powers and opening up new abilities. However, it also gives regular fighters the chance to inherit some of the skills of their magical Emblem counterparts, enabling you to accrue lots of extra abilities and buffs, which you can then switch in and out of use for battles as you see fit, even when you're not wearing a particular Emblem ring. And you can also forge bond rings, which are sort of like cheap knockoffs that you might find in a questionable bowling alley vending machine. And these give your party members buffs and stat increases without the ability to call forth an actual emblem in battle. There's a lot to get to grips with, a ton of choice in how you present yourself on the battlefield. And it gives this game a huge amount of replay value going forward as you attempt to find victory in both the hard and maddening difficulties, which gives us nightmares just thinking about it. Engaging with emblems, utilizing all of their skills on top of your own, and pulling off great big N-Gage attacks is what it's all about here. You've got everything that's made the Fire Emblem series such a blast to play in the past. That same wonderfully tight, intricate, deep combat that'll have you scratching your head and carefully considering every single option, now enhanced by the truly impressive level of choice and flexibility that the ring system brings to the table. There's an almost endless array of matchups to make between your favorite fighters and emblems here, with tons of variations in the builds you can take into battle. It all works seamlessly, feels fantastic to muck about and experiment with, and most importantly perhaps, it's all conveyed to the player in a concise and easily understandable manner. Intelligent Systems has made sure that every single bit of battle knowledge you need in the heat of the moment is clearly represented on screen at any given time. Your available abilities, your enemy's potential attacks and movement radiuses, health gauges, ranks, classes, attacks, and defensive stats, it's all present and correct, and commendably simple to figure out. It really is super slick, rewardingly addictive and challenging, even on the lowest difficulty. We played through the campaign on normal mode, the lowest available setting, and found ourselves still needing to rank up by utilizing the endless side skirmishes and paralogs scattered around the gorgeous map. And speaking of paralogs, make sure to not skip any of these if you can. You'll add lots of cool new fighters to your roster by doing so, and by jumping into them as they pop up, you'll likely be able to avoid some of the grinding we had to do late in the game as we rushed, perhaps a little too quickly, through the main campaign. All in all, it took us well past the 45-hour mark to see the end of this one the first time around. But if you factor in skirmishes and paralogs, if you're a player who wants to adopt every pet, find every extra character, and max out all sets of available bond rings, well, you're looking at a good few dozen hours on top of that quite easily. This is a big game, and it's absolutely jam-packed full of ways to do battle. Whether it's a critical story mission, side skirmishes, paralogs, or a run at the Tower of Trials, where you're faced with overcoming back-to-back battle scenarios in order to win rewards. Fire Emblem N-Gage always puts its combat front and center. It feels like an unabashed celebration of the tactical side of this beloved series. And when the action feels this good, it's not hard to get swept up in it all. We have to give mention to the overall presentation of Fire Emblem N-Gage as well. Three Houses certainly had a few issues with its overall performance upon release, as we noted in our review back in 2019, but this new entry is nearly flawless in this regard. Over our entire extended playtime here, we didn't experience a single noticeable hitch in the frame rate, no bugs, no crashes, no stuttering as you rush around the Somniel or explore battlefields for treasure once the fighting is done. In both docked and handheld modes, it looks and sounds gorgeous too, with Mika Picasso's artwork and Yuka Tsujioko's stellar soundtrack making for one of the most polished experiences on Switch thus far. And we're totally aware that Alir's multicolored mop has proven controversial amongst fans online, but trust us, they'll get over it. In the end, what you've got here is a game that'll inevitably divide players. Fire Emblem N-Gage isn't trying to emulate its most recent predecessor. It's absolutely taken a different stance and focused on combat first and foremost, ditching the deep social and romantic aspects in favor of preparing for and indulging in great big tactical battles. It may seem like a negative to some, but for us, the reining in of certain narrative excesses makes for a game that's much easier to simply jump into for a quick strategy fix. It makes for a Fire Emblem adventure that we can see ourselves replaying and coming back to over and over again because it doesn't bog its battles down in dialogue and cutscenes. If you're coming to this one looking for the depth of downtime content that Three Houses provided, you're going to be disappointed. Simple as that. But if you're here for the combat, if all you really want from Fire Emblem is to test your mettle against super smart adversaries in some of the slickest and most satisfying turn-based combat around, Intelligent Systems has got you well and truly covered. Fire Emblem N-Gage is another stellar entry in this storied franchise, but it's also one that takes a noticeably different stance than its most recent predecessor. It's all about the combat this time around, at the expense of the relationships and romance that made Awakening and Three Houses such a fan favorite. So if you're looking for that social element here, you're bound to be left feeling at least a tad disappointed. However, for those looking to get down with some sweet turn-based tactical action that's embedded in a satisfyingly over-the-top, beautifully presented anime narrative, this is as fine an example of the genre as you'll play this year. We here at Nintendo Life give Fire Emblem N-Gage on the Nintendo Switch a 9 out of 10. Now, if you'd like to check out our full written review, you can find that along with more news and information on Fire Emblem N-Gage and the rest of the series over at nintendolife.com. Where do your thoughts and feelings lie on N-Gage so far? Is the main character's toothpaste hair bothering you? Do you rather enjoy it? Because I do. I think it's cool. Let us know in the comments down below. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos like this, then why don't you engage with that subscribe button, because it's the right thing to do. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you to PJ for spending at least a whopping 45 hours with Fire Emblem N-Gage so far. I'm Zion from Nintendo Life. Stay safe out there, and we will see you all next time.